Hello. It struck me during dinner, but not in an over-the-top way. No shouting, no storming out. Just silence. Too much silence. Samantha was sitting across from me, chewing slowly, almost like she was measuring each bite, her free hand scrolling through her phone. She used to be chatty during dinner, talking about her job, the neighbors, trivial gossip from her yoga class. Now, only the sound of her fork tapping the plate. My name's Adam. I'm 37, and I live in Overland Park, Kansas. I've been married to Samantha for nearly 10 years, and I thought everything was fine. But lately, something feels off. It's in the little things. She no longer laughs at my jokes. In fact, she barely looks up when I talk. She goes to bed before me, saying she's tired. But then I hear her whispering on the phone, telling me it's her sister. But it's the same giggle she used to have when we were dating. That soft, playful laugh that made me feel like I was the only one in her world. A quick note before we continue. Let us know which country or city you're watching from. Tonight, I had enough. I mentioned the idea of taking a weekend trip, just the two of us. Nothing extravagant, just somewhere close, like Branson. She nodded without looking up, mumbling about work being overwhelming. I kept talking, trying to draw her in. Maybe next month we can. Yeah, sure, Brian. She responded without missing a beat. I froze. Did I hear that correctly? Brian? I asked. She finally looked up, as if realizing I had gone quiet. What? She said, but I wanted to know. I wanted to throw my fork down and demand to know who Brian was. But instead, I just smiled. Nothing, just thought I heard something. She brushed it off. Must have been the TV, she said, even though it wasn't on. We finished our dinner in silence. She cleaned her plate, said she had emails to answer, and went to the bedroom. I sat there, staring at her empty wine glass. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I was overthinking things, but something told me it wasn't right. There was no Brian in her family, no Brian at her work, as far as I knew. Something was off. I didn't have proof yet, but I had to find out. So, I got up, rinsed my plate, and started to make a plan. The dishes were still wet when I dried my hands and walked to the garage. I didn't say anything to Samantha. She was still buried in her laptop, her earbuds in, nodding to whatever she was pretending to care about. Her keys were on the hook by the door. I took them quietly and walked out to her car, acting like I was just checking the tire pressure. I opened the passenger door and sat down, my eyes immediately scanning the glove compartment. I opened it carefully, registration, napkins, a broken sunglasses case, tampons, gum wrappers, nothing unusual. I even ran my hand under the seat, checking for anything hidden between the cushions. Still nothing. I leaned back, frustrated. I wasn't going to find anything just sitting there. Then I remembered the dash cam. I used to work in delivery a few years ago and bought a cheap dash cam online for insurance. It was still in my old toolbox. I kept it for parts, but the camera should still work. By midnight, Samantha was asleep. I waited an hour to make sure. Her breathing was steady. I moved slowly, no sudden movements, and kept quiet as I grabbed the dash cam and an old USB stick I had lying around. The wires were a mess, but I managed to set it up without needing the screen. I didn't need sound, just the footage. At 6 a.m., I caught her before she left. You need gas? I asked casually, sipping my coffee. She paused at the door, bag over her shoulder. No, I'm good, she replied, shrugging. Just thought I'd top it off if you were low, I said. I'm fine, she muttered. That was it. No thanks, no smile. Just gone. As soon as the garage door closed, I slipped out and opened her car. It took 5 minutes to install the camera. It sat hidden behind the mirror, wires tucked away behind the dash. I tested it with the USB stick. It was good enough to catch movement and sound, at least from the front seats. No night vision, no GPS, but it would work. That week, I acted like nothing was different. I asked if she wanted anything from the store. We talked about trash day and when her parents were visiting. She gave me little bits of info. Don't forget to pick up almond milk. Or, I think we're out of trash bags. But she never really spoke. I stopped trying to make her laugh. On Thursday, she worked late, saying she had reports due. I just nodded. Take your time. That night, I watched TV until she came back. She entered, barely making eye contact, gave me a half-hearted kiss on the cheek, and said she was exhausted. I watched her walk to the bedroom. Still no mention of Brian. I didn't ask. The camera had been running for 4 days. I knew I'd have to sift through hours of boring footage, commutes, traffic lights, maybe a stop for coffee. But that didn't matter. I didn't care how long it took. I just needed one moment. One glimpse of the truth. Something that would shut down every excuse she might throw at me when all of this came out. The next morning, she left like always. I walked to the garage, grabbed the USB, slipped it in my pocket, and went back inside without saying a word. It was time to see what she thought I'd never find. I plugged the USB into my laptop just after 1 a.m. Samantha had been asleep for over an hour, deep in her sleep, the kind where she didn't even turn over. I sat in the dark, back against the wall, as I clicked open the most recent folder. No expectations, just traffic noise, maybe some background music. Instead, I heard her voice. "Hey, I was starting to think you weren't coming." It wasn't the tone she used with me. This was lighter, more playful, the kind of fake laugh she'd given me at dinner a few weeks ago. But now, it sounded genuine, effortless. Then I heard his voice. "I told you, I always find time for you." That voice. I knew it. Brian. Brian fucking Cole. I hadn't heard from him in years, but the recognition was instant. We had crossed paths a few times through mutual friends. He used to appear everywhere on Samantha's social media before we got engaged. I never gave it much thought then. Now, it made my stomach twist. My hands were shaking as I fast-forwarded. The video showed them in the car, parked somewhere dark, maybe behind a shopping center or down some quiet road. She leaned toward him. Her body language said more than her words had in months. "Did you miss me?" she asked him. He chuckled. "Every damn day." Then she laughed, that soft, breathy laugh I hadn't heard in years. It wasn't just physical. It was emotional, intimate. They were in a world where I didn't exist. He reached over, tucked her hair behind her ear. "You look so good in this light." "You always say that, because it's always true." Then she kissed him. I didn't look away. I watched every second of it. The way she smiled into the kiss, the way she sighed. It wasn't just about sex. It was a connection, something real, at least for them. I let the video play even after it went silent. They held hands and talked about their weekend plans. She said she had to keep it low since I was starting to ask questions. He reassured her, telling her not to worry, that I was too checked out to notice. I didn't react. I didn't yell or throw things. I just sat there. Then I got up, created a new folder on my desktop, and started copying the files. I reviewed the earlier footage. 2 days ago, the same thing. They met after her late shift. He got into the car, leaned in like he owned the place. She touched his face. I caught her calling him baby. I labeled that file Tuesday parking lot 1, then Thursday hand-holding, and Friday night kiss. I didn't know why I was organizing it like this. Maybe I needed to keep it neat. Maybe I needed it to be clear. Each video felt like another piece of my marriage being torn away. By the 4th video, I knew there was no fixing this. I just didn't know what the end game was yet. Divorce? Sure. But not like this. Not quietly. Not like I was some guy who just faded away while she played house with another man. I closed the laptop, backed up the files on another drive, and hid everything in the back of my sock drawer. I wasn't ready to confront her yet, but the proof was there. And when the time came, she wasn't walking away clean. The next morning, she brought it up while sipping her coffee, acting like nothing had changed. Like I hadn't spent the night watching her cheat on me in high definition. "Hey," she said, not even looking up from her phone. "Claire and Matt are throwing a dinner party on Saturday. You remember them, right?" "Yeah, from the lake house trip." She smiled like we were still a happy couple with shared memories. "They're inviting a bunch of people we haven't seen in a while. I told them we'd come." I nodded slowly. "You sure that's a good idea?" She cocked her head. "Why wouldn't it be? You've been swamped lately. I figured you'd want a quiet weekend." "No, I think we should go. Be good for us to get out, don't you think?" Her tone was light, but her eyes were too focused on me, like she was waiting to see if I'd push back. I didn't. "All right," I said. "Let's go." She leaned in and kissed me on the cheek, quick and calculated. "Great. I'll let them know." As soon as she left for work, I opened the laptop. I already knew Brian would be there. Claire and Matt were part of their little group. Samantha had casually mentioned his name while talking about old friends who'd be at the party. She slipped it in like it was nothing, but I caught it, just like I caught everything else. I went through the dash cam footage again, rewatching the worst moments. The laugh, the kiss. The moment she told him, I wish I could just tell him the truth and be done with it. Done with me. I dragged 3 clips into a new folder, renamed them. Intro, touch, confession. Short, clean, no fluff. Just enough to destroy the fantasy she had built. I plugged in a new flash drive, copied the files over, and locked it in the glove box of my own car. I wasn't going to scramble with tech at the last minute. I knew Claire's house had a living room TV with a USB port. Matt used to play vacation slideshows on it at parties, like some dad channel. The moment would come. I'd be ready. The rest of the week, I played it cool. We talked about what wine to bring. She mentioned maybe stopping at Nordstrom to grab a new dress. I said it sounded nice. Inside, I was coiled tight. Every time she smiled, I pictured her hand on Brian's arm. Every time she laughed, I heard her whisper, "I've never felt like this with anyone." I ran through the plan every night like a checklist. Get in, stay calm, wait for the moment when they get comfortable, when the whispers start, when Samantha forgets I'm even there. Then I'd move. Saturday crept closer, and I didn't sleep more than 3 hours a night. Not from nerves, but from anger, from anticipation. I wasn't afraid of confrontation. I wanted it. I wanted to see the look on her face when she realized I'd been watching the whole time. She thought I was passive, checked out, a man too dull or distracted to notice the wreck happening right in front of him. She was wrong. We pulled into Claire and Matt's driveway a few minutes after 7. Samantha fixed her lipstick in the visor mirror like it was any other night. I watched her out of the corner of my eye, calm on the outside, calculating underneath. She smiled at me when she closed the mirror. "Try to have fun tonight, okay?" "Sure," I said and got out of the car. Inside, it was warm and loud. Claire was already buzzed, hugging people too long, greeting us with a shriek. "There they are. The power couple," she said, pulling Samantha in. Then to me, "God, we haven't seen you two in forever." "Yeah," I said. "Been a while." Samantha let her arm slip from mine as soon as we walked in. She drifted into the crowd like she had a magnet pulling her somewhere. I stayed near the kitchen island, grabbed a bourbon from the drink cart, and kept my eyes open. I didn't have to wait long. Brian walked in 20 minutes later, laughing at something one of the guys said at the door. Samantha was already halfway across the room by the time he stepped inside. She didn't even try to act surprised. She just brushed her hand across his back like it was muscle memory. I stood near the hallway, sipping slowly, and watched them. She leaned into him, said something that made him tilt his head and grin. He touched her elbow like it was nothing, but it wasn't nothing. That touch told me everything. "What city or country are you watching from?" I made my way through the house slowly, staying in the background, not mingling. Nobody noticed me. Or if they did, they didn't care. Samantha did a good job playing the wife in small bursts, grabbing my arm when someone asked how we were doing, smiling widely when Claire took pictures. But in between those moments, she was somewhere else, with him. She kept circling back to Brian, like she couldn't help it, talking close to him, laughing louder than necessary. Every few minutes, she'd rest her hand on his arm or tuck her hair behind her ear and tilt her head, like a high school girl trying to get picked for prom. I caught Brian glance at me once across the room. It wasn't panic. It was smugness. Like he thought he had the upper hand, like he knew something I didn't. He didn't. Dinner was set up buffet style. Matt made some speech about friendship and long years and all that surface-level nonsense people say when they're avoiding real tension. We filled our plates and sat around a long table that stretched across the dining room and part of the living room. I sat at the far end. Samantha sat across from me, 2 seats over. Brian was next to her. The 3 of them, her, Brian, and some guy from Matt's work, talked the whole time like I wasn't even there. Samantha didn't look at me once. Not even when I passed the breadbasket. She wasn't nervous. She was comfortable. That told me more than any footage ever could. I stayed quiet, ate slowly, nodded at people's stories, laughed at the right times. Nobody noticed I hadn't said more than 10 words all night. And that was fine. I didn't need attention. I needed timing. By dessert, the atmosphere had shifted. The lights were dimmer. People were louder. Couples were closer. Claire cranked up the music and brought out an old bottle of dessert wine she'd been saving for a special night. Everyone was in that fuzzy stage between drunk and sentimental. Samantha was glowing. And not because of me. Because of him. She leaned into Brian like it was the most natural thing in the world. I checked my pocket. The flash drive was still there. I was done watching. But they weren't done performing. Good. Let them keep putting on the show. Because I already had the finale loaded and ready. Brian poured himself another glass of wine and leaned back in his chair like he owned the place. His voice cut through the small talk around the table. Some women just know what they want, he said, looking directly at Samantha. And some men never figure it out. It wasn't even subtle. Samantha didn't flinch. She smiled behind her glass and stared down at her plate like nothing had happened. That was it. I set my fork down. Quiet. No scene. No yelling. Then I looked Brian straight in the eye. Enjoy her. That stopped everything. Conversations died mid-sentence. Chairs shifted. Glasses hovered mid-air. Samantha blinked like she wasn't sure she'd heard me right. I pushed my chair back and stood up. Claire looked around, laughing nervously. What's going on? I didn't answer her. I turned, walked into the living room, and reached behind the TV. Matt had a stack of remotes on the shelf, labeled Organized Classic Engineer Brain. I grabbed the one for the screen and turned it on. Then I took the flash drive from my pocket and slid it into the port. The screen lit up. Samantha's voice came through first. Hey, I was starting to think you weren't coming. A second later, Brian's voice answered her. I told you. I always find time for you. I didn't say a word. I just stepped aside so everyone could see. Matt stood up halfway, confused. What's that? No one answered. Brian's face went pale. Samantha froze. On the screen, she leaned across the console of her car and kissed him. Full on. Her hand touched his cheek like she couldn't get close enough. Her laugh was soft, breathy, pure affection. The whole room fell into dead silence. Claire covered her mouth. Someone's drink spilled onto the floor. I didn't even look. Samantha shot up from her chair. Adam, turn it off. I didn't move. She came toward me fast, like she was going to yank the drive out herself. I held my hand up. Don't, I said. Let them finish watching. Her mouth opened to speak, but nothing came out. Brian stood too, red-faced. This is ridiculous. I turned to him. Number. This is honest. The next clip started. Samantha again. I wish I could just tell him the truth and be done with it. Brian answered. He's not paying attention. He's basically out of the picture already. That one hit hard. I heard someone whisper, oh my God. Samantha backed away like the floor shifted under her. Her face was drained of all color. Adam, please. I looked her dead in the eye. You made your choices. Don't try to manage mine. She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. Brian took a step forward, like he was about to say something, but then stopped himself. He knew it was over. Everyone's eyes were on the screen, unsure whether to focus on the footage or the wreckage unfolding in front of them. And I just stood there, still, focused, waiting. This was only the beginning. The second clip began. This time, they were parked outside what appeared to be a hotel. Samantha was in the driver's seat, turned toward Brian, her hand resting on his thigh as if it belonged there. You know, I think about you more than I should, she said, her voice soft and low. Brian smirked. That's because you finally got tired of pretending. The sound of her laugh was a slap in the face. It used to be mine. That laugh was once mine. Around the room, nobody moved. Forks were set down, wine glasses left untouched. The hum of the fridge in the kitchen was the only background noise besides the video. Claire leaned over to Matt, whispering, Is that? That's their car, Matt replied, nodding slowly, not saying another word. On the screen, Samantha leaned in, kissing Brian again. Then came the part I'd saved for last, her voice clear as day. I swear, sometimes I wonder why I ever settled. That one hit harder than all the others. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I just watched her. She was standing by the edge of the dining room, one hand covering her mouth, her eyes locked on the screen, frozen, as though if she stood still long enough, it would all go away. Then came the third clip. They were laughing, full-on laughing about me. I swear, I could probably tell him I'm at Bible study and he'd believe it, she said. Brian chuckled. He seems like a nice guy, just slow. That did it. Someone across the room let out a stunned breath, like they couldn't hold it in any longer. Then, from the hallway, a voice cut through everything. What the hell is this? It was Ashley, Brian's wife. She stood in the doorway, holding a half-empty glass of white wine, her mouth slightly open, staring at the TV. Her eyes followed every second of the video. She didn't speak again. She didn't need to. Samantha turned slowly, her voice cracking. Ashley, wait. Ashley didn't wait. She crossed the room in 6 quick steps and slapped Samantha across the face. Loud, sharp, no hesitation. The sound of it echoed. Nobody breathed. Samantha didn't cry. She just stood there, stunned, holding her cheek. Ashley turned to Brian, who hadn't moved an inch. You disgusting piece of shit. Brian tried to speak. Ashley, listen, She held up her hand, cutting him off. Don't say a word to me. She turned and walked straight out the front door. Brian stood there for a second, blinking, like he couldn't believe what had just happened. Then he bolted after her, calling her name. The door slammed behind him. I didn't move. I just watched Samantha. She slowly sank into a chair, like her legs had given out. Claire sat frozen, hands in her lap. Matt rubbed his temple like he suddenly had a migraine. Nobody said a thing. I could feel their eyes on me, waiting for some meltdown, waiting for me to yell. But I wasn't giving them that. I had already said what I needed to. I walked to the TV and pulled the flash drive out. The screen went black. Samantha looked up at me, her mouth half open, eyes wide and wet. But nothing came out. I stared at her. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel confusion, fear, or even rage. I just felt done. Nobody moved. The silence sat heavy in the room, like smoke after a fire. Samantha still hadn't spoken. She just sat there, one hand resting on the edge of the table, the other limp in her lap. Her cheek was turning red where Ashley had slapped her, but her face was pale. Blank. Claire stood slowly, adjusting her dress, like it would somehow fix the tension in the room. Okay, well that was... Wow. Matt looked around, then at me. You want some water or something? No, I said. A few guests started to shuffle toward the door. No goodbyes, no hugs. Just awkward eye contact and fast steps. I heard someone mumble, Jesus Christ, on their way out. A couple near the fireplace made a move toward Samantha, but then turned around, like they thought better of it. Smart move. There was nothing to say to her now that wouldn't make it worse. The front door opened again, and I looked up. Her parents. They had just arrived late, as usual. Her dad took one step in and froze. Her mom followed close behind, smiling like she was ready to work the room. Then she saw Samantha. What's going on? Her mom asked, scanning the room, confused by the tension. Nobody answered. Claire took a step forward but stopped herself. Then Samantha's dad spoke, quiet, sharp, and dead serious. What did you do? He asked her. Samantha didn't look up. She didn't even blink. Her dad walked over slowly, eyes fixed on his daughter, like she was a stranger. I want to be wrong, he said, but I know I'm not. Samantha finally lifted her head. Dad, no. He cut her off with just that one word, then leaned in closer. You threw away a 10-year marriage, a good man. And for what? Some sneaking around in a car with a married idiot? She flinched like he'd slapped her, but he never raised his voice. He didn't need to. Her mom stepped beside him, arms crossed, lips tight. We raised you better than this. Samantha looked at her. It's not. You humiliated yourself. You humiliated us. Her mom's voice cracked. I'm embarrassed to even look at you right now. The whole room was still. The guests who hadn't left yet stood frozen, pretending not to listen, but hanging on every word. I didn't say a thing. I just watched her. Watched Samantha sink lower into that chair like the air had been knocked out of her. Her dad straightened his jacket. You've lost everything, and you don't even know it yet. He turned and walked out. Her mom followed without another word. Samantha didn't chase them. She didn't move. I could see her trying to hold back tears, but even that effort seemed half-hearted. She wasn't in shock because she'd been caught, but because she never thought she would be. I glanced at the front door. Claire was standing there now, arms folded, not looking at anyone directly. This isn't how tonight was supposed to go, she muttered under her breath. I looked back at Samantha, still frozen. She hadn't looked at me once since the last clip ended. It was like she thought if she avoided my eyes, none of it would be real. But it was real, and this wasn't even the worst of it. Not yet. I didn't say a word to her. Samantha sat slumped in that chair like all the life had drained from her. Her eyes were wide, lips parted, but nothing came out. It was over, and she knew it. I turned, walked past Claire, and nodded once. Thanks for dinner. She didn't say anything. She just stepped aside and let me go. I got in my car, drove home with the windows down, the cold air cutting through the silence. No music, no thoughts. Just the feeling of something coming to an end. As soon as I got inside, I pulled up the file I'd been sitting on for a week. Divorce paperwork. It was mostly filled out already. Just needed a signature and a trip to the courthouse. I printed it, signed my name, and poured myself a drink. The next morning, my phone started buzzing before 9. Her name lit up the screen. I let it ring out, then again, and again. By noon, she was outside my new apartment, an address I'd never given her. I opened the door halfway. She looked wrecked, hair tied back like she hadn't even showered, face blotchy, mascara smudged. "Adam, please," she said. "I need to talk to you." I stepped outside, closed the door behind me. She kept going. I never meant for it to go that far. I didn't know how to stop it. I didn't. "Save it," I said. "You had chances. You used them on someone else." Her lip trembled. "I was lonely. You weren't present anymore. You didn't notice me." "Don't twist this," I said. "You didn't want attention. You wanted permission." She blinked, stunned. I meant every word. "I've already started the paperwork," I said. Her eyes filled up again. "Adam, please, we can fix this. I'll go to therapy. We can work through it. Don't throw everything away." I shook my head. "I didn't throw anything. You lit the match." She moved closer, like she might touch me, but I stepped back. "You don't live here," I said, "and you're not coming back." She stood there, arms limp, tears running down her face. But I felt nothing. Not rage. Not pity. Just a weight lifting. I turned and walked past her, back into the apartment. Didn't look back. Didn't need to. For the first time in years, I didn't owe anyone anything. I was done.